I want to bring in Martin Capital founder and CEO Rod Martin. And, Rod, it's sort of, I guess, a crazy catch-22. So Europe, which has pledged to increase their military budgets to perhaps, thwart Russia, keeps funding the Russian war machine at the same time.
Oh, you're exactly right. And since the outset of the war, Europe has actually sent twice as much money to Moscow in energy purchases as it has to Kiev in aid. So it's just horrifying. But at the same time, to be fair to our European allies, they have peeled back off that a lot. And as we increase LNG production in the United States and the number of terminals available, we're able to pick up the slack from the Russians and supply energy needs, Europe's energy needs. This is essential for national security for all those countries as well as for ours. And it'll do a ton to cut our trade deficit with Europe.
Then there's the wild card. China does not like hearing this. They've already issued a blunt warning to NATO and these G7 countries. Any additional tariffs on Russian oil, they're pretty upset about this. So, I think the question is, where does this put us? Can we already admit that we're at least in a Cold War with China at this very moment?
Well, we absolutely are, and have been for some time, longer than the American administration recognized it. Trump certainly did in his first term, as he has in his second. And what we see him developing is a containment strategy for China quietly. We're not using Cold War language, but we're using Cold War strategy. This is straight out of George F. Kennan after World War II with regard to the Soviets, and it's working. And the truth is, China's foreign direct investment has collapsed over the last 3 years by 99%. Yeah. It's just extraordinary, and America's benefiting heavily from that.
Yeah, it's zero. I don't think people out there realize it's zero. I want to ask you a little bit more about their economy, but first, the notion that, the Cold Wars can sometimes become real wars. And, there's always been thought that China, particularly under Xi at some point, Taiwan being the gem, but maybe even global dominance, the collision course, how much of a collision course are we on with the real war for China?
Well, it's very dangerous because China is aware of its growing demographic collapse as well. They are on track, based on some of the best numbers we have access to lose as much as 75% of their population by the end of the century, which is just staggering and unprecedented. That means that they have a very short clock on which to grab whatever they're gonna grab. And of course, Taiwan is in their crosshairs. We just published an article at rodmartin.org about Siberia being in their crosshairs also. And so there is real danger, but Donald Trump's whole strategy is rooted in Reagan's with Riyadh in the mid-'80s that deprived the Soviet Union of the cash it needed to continue the arms race. And Donald Trump is doing that to China right now. So hopefully we can contain their aggressive tendencies and get back to a decent trading relationship.
On that front, the economic news, institutions, media, I hate to say it, but it feels like a lot of them are actually rooting against America, rooting for China, and they keep saying that they're going to beat us, like it's inevitable. But all I see is a ton of bad economic news on China. It doesn't get mentioned. Even this morning, there was more bad news. And on top of that, their fertility crisis and all these other things. You've hinted in the past that not only does this make them vulnerable, but it can make them desperate.
It absolutely could, and there are things they can do to compensate. We see this with the rise of these dark factories in various parts of China that are entirely automated, no people at all. But the problem with robots is they don't buy cars or houses. So in a sense, this is actually exacerbating the problem and making China even more dependent on exports, which Donald Trump is cracking down on. So they've got to come to a deal that makes sense, and they're going to have to back off some of the aggressive tendencies to be able to have it.
Yes or no, 5 seconds, TikTok, does a deal ever happen?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. All right. Hey, Rod, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned your website because your work is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.